We are live. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Security. This is our 5th episode and one that won't be like the previous ones. So far we've gone back and forth between offensive and defensive security, and we've gotten quite technical at times. But this episode will probably be very non-technical and more on like the softer sides or softer values of our community. And with me tonight on these topics is my colleague from TrueSec, Simon. So Simon, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely, and thank you very much for inviting me. I've been nervous the entire week, to be completely honest.
That makes two of us.
Yeah, but I'm very happy to be here. And like you said, I work for TrueSec as a workplace architect. Have a background within device management, which awarded me, or Microsoft awarded me Microsoft MVP within Endpoint Manager close to 3 years ago now. So I'm very active in the Microsoft community especially. And since joining TrueSec, I've been focusing a lot more on security and also compliance, which is a very odd topic in itself. But still a huge focus on the workplace in general. And when we were able to fly around the globe, I did that and have been speaking at close to every major Microsoft conference, so Microsoft Ignite and other places, including a couple of like non-technical sessions as well. But other than that, I'm a huge beer and whiskey geek. I try to be in the outdoors as much as I can. And yeah, in general, a geek. We just, before we started the stream, we came to the conclusion that most of us that works in IT are persons that never do things half full. We always try to be the best we possibly can on anything. So I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to gathering bonus points, working with tech, and failing to save money on a working from home setup.
Yeah, been there, done that, and doing that, basically. All right, so like this episode is going to sort of focus around career and like how to be a happy user, because I know you're an advocate of happy users.
Absolutely.
And like we don't want to be miserable in our workplace, and we don't want, like, we have to have a place we sort of like to go, maybe even love to go. So like, what is a happy user, Simon? Do you have any form of definition of like that?
Yeah, I think when you ask, or start from the other end, like when I do workshops with organizations on how to create their next digital workplace, I always have one question that really defines where a lot of us are mentally. And that is that I ask, or I can ask you that question. What is your dream digital workplace?
I'm not even sure what sort of the a digital workplace is, like in what the term means exactly, to be honest.
Yeah, and we can get back to that as well. But then, what if you were to design your home office today? How would it look?
I mean, it has to be, because if you're at work, you have a really good chair and you have a really good like workspace as far as table and 1 or 2 monitors. And then when you get home, I've seen terrible setups. People sitting at like wooden chairs and the laptop being propped up on an ironing board or something, and that's probably not it.
No, and it could be like, I think the what I usually get back when I ask something like that is, yeah, I want 2 screens, and then I try again to say, okay, if you no limits, what would be your perfect digital workplace? And they're still, 2 screens and a wireless mouse. Because that is the mental image we have, or used to have at least, of an office and a digital workplace. But when you then start to challenge that, my perfect digital workplace would be one that allowed me to work where I am virtually now in the forests, or even if I do like this. This would likely be the perfect digital workplace for me, being in a pub in Scotland and still being able to do my work. So that is what I try to achieve. Possibly not everyone being allowed to work in a pub, but certainly allowing users to work where they feel most safe, most productive, and ensuring that the technology supports that while, of course, adhering to the security and compliance requirements there are. And if we're going to talk about what differentiate a happy user from an unhappy user, is their ability to do their job. So assume that someone told you that you're not allowed to use 2 monitors anymore, or you're only allowed to use a old CRT screen. You wouldn't be as productive. You wouldn't be able to do a good job. You're hindered by IT. So what I try to achieve in any workplace, small or large, is to enable users to do their job even better or more efficient or in a more healthy way by leveraging technology. Because that is in practice what makes them happy.
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, it's not the case, like you can probably work with one like monitor if you had to, but then it wouldn't be your decision because someone told you that you cannot have two monitors. Mm-hmm. That would sort of make you feel like contained in some way or not, in charge of your environment, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you need to be a happy user?
Absolutely. I think that when I started at TrueSec and I meet all of the amazing colleagues we have, and some of them are extremely technical and like do everything they possibly can to secure everything with technology, and you can do that. But in my opinion, the most unsafe or insecure user you can have is an unhappy user, because they will do whatever it takes to do a good job. And they, at that point, if they feel that I can't do my job in a proper way, they will take any shortcut or any other way around that they can find to make a better job for the benefit of themselves and for the benefit of the company as they see it. So it doesn't, in my opinion, matter how much you invest in technical security if it prevents your users from doing a good job. Now, it comes with some ifs and buts. There are some things that we will have to have a discussion around, and that is the second bit of what makes a user happy. If you listen to them, then they are happy. They, in my experience, they don't always have to get what they want or desire. But if you say that you can't have this, you can't have a $5,000 MacBook because the budget only allows us to give you a $1,000 PC, and we can't do anything else. And this is because of this. They usually accept that. It's when you tell them no without any explanation that also makes users unhappy. So ensuring that they can do a job, explaining to them why they can and can't have some things, that will both create a more secure workplace as well as more happy users. But the second you get unhappy users, you also get a very insecure environment.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem for us in security too, because quite often I think people look at us as just naysayers, or just stoppers of things. And it sort of becomes an issue when we just say no and we don't offer any alternative. Because if we just say no, they'll find a way around it. But if we give them an alternative and sort of can explain why, then that's usually okay. In my experience, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also can end up in a situation where you get to a point where you either have too much security or too much compliance. And at that point, you also start to get into what some of our colleagues call shady IT. So it may be a very secure infrastructure, but it's not the infrastructure we were provided with. But since it enables your users to do their job, you see through your fingers with that. So it's not shadow IT because you're perfectly aware that it's there and that it's good for some users, but it's not the infrastructure you built.
Yeah. So let's sort of pick up a question from chat regarding feeling safe, Simon. This is to you from Black Lion M1. So why are you nervous? Because you said it in the beginning, and you're a great speaker and a presenter. What's different about this?
I think that is the biggest lie of public speaking. I've met one speaker in my career that claimed that he is never nervous. But all the brilliant speakers I know, many of them far more experienced and better speakers than I am, are terrified when they enter a stage. I would say that I'm always nervous, and this is something completely new to me. I've never been, or I've been live, but not having a discussion like this. That's fairly rare. And since I can't see whoever is watching us, I can't decide if I'm doing a good job or not, which is something I can do when I'm on a stage doing a keynote or a panel discussion or something like that. So the uncertainty makes me very, very nervous. And it's a new platform and all of that. And I, of course, also want the viewers and listeners to have a good time. Like, they are investing a lot of their time in watching you and me. And I like they are returning for you, but I may be the one who scares them away. I don't want to have that on my conscience. I'm always nervous. It doesn't matter where I am. And also, adding to that, when I did my first public speaking course, you got an exercise where the coach said, okay, you usually have an uncertainty rule for yourself. When are you feeling uncertain or nervous? And I quickly realized that when I feel most insecure, that's when I speak in front of a very small group of people I know. That terrifies me. I have no problem in speaking in front of the biggest live session I've done is 1,500 people. No problem. Super easy. But being in a call with two of our colleagues, that makes me terrified.
Is it because it's more personal, or you can sort of, the people know you, or like,
yeah,
what do you
absolutely.
think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't do, like, public speaking is a lot about making a show, in entertaining people, and at the same time sharing some knowledge and teaching people and inspiring people. But they don't know me, so they don't know how I usually behave. But if someone knows me, they also quickly realize what I do different when I'm on stage compared to when I'm off stage. So that also gets them closer to me. And then we get back to imposter syndrome, which I'm sure we will get back to when we talk about career development as well, because that is something most of us, I would say, suffer from, where we feel that imposter syndrome is basically, I'm fake. I'm not near as good as everyone else believes I am. And that is something we all suffer from, or most of us.
Yes, me as well. I mean, I've experienced imposter syndromes when I applied for jobs, and I'm like, well, if I apply for this job, then they're going to realize that I don't know as much as I think I do, or there might become official that I don't know anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you. So let's jump into a really big question that I want to talk about, and it's basically career in IT security in this case. I'm not sure where to start exactly. So, like, what if you don't work in IT security, or if you want to break into IT security, can you do it? Mm-hmm. Do you have to be in your 20s to do it, or can you do it midlife or late life, or like, do you have any benefit of past experiences or not? Or, like, should you just stay in your current job?
I think that is also a very important aspect that I always try to give to everyone I speak to, that we all have experiences. Everyone, regardless of age and where we are and what we have done, it's an experience, and we should cherish that. Because in my opinion, we all have our hidden superpowers. And looking at what makes a good cybersecurity individual, regardless if you're a consultant or working in-house or doing something else, well, it's the troubleshooting desire. Like, we want to get to the root cause of an attack or a malware or something like that. We want to dig deep and understand what is going on. What can we learn from this? It's about problem solving, and it's about caring for others, customers, your own organization, or individuals even. And a lot of these aspects are something you learn in a lot of professions. So in my opinion, we we need a more diverse group in cybersecurity, and it's definitely nothing you should try or feel uncomfortable with if you want to become someone in cybersecurity when you're 40 or 50 or even older. Because if you have a deep knowledge coming from other experiences, you are most likely a very, very good candidate for starting off in a SOC, as an example. Like if you have been working in public sector in a country and you start to work as a cybersecurity individual in that country, you likely will recognize some of the applications or some of the ways you are working, and can more quickly than anyone who haven't done that decide if something is malicious or not. So age should never be a problem, in my opinion. Sadly, there are a lot of people that think so. And that's something I also do in many of my workshops. Like, I think we all have heard that who is the most dangerous person at like if we are really biased and really like drawing it to the extreme, who is often said to be the most insecure individual at a company.
An unhappy user, someone.
Yeah.
We go back to that.
I think, yeah, and that as well. But I also think that we have an image of older persons, and unfortunately often women, as being very unsecure because they in some cases are, in our eyes, not as technical. But I always try to flip that around and say, okay, what do you think about this young man who comes in and thinks he owns the world, in my opinion, and starts to demand a lot of things? In my opinion, they are as insecure. And then you can start to talk about, okay, what makes an insecure user? And in the end, everyone is more or less insecure. We all have our weaknesses, but at the same time, we all have our strengths. So you can get started in IT security or cybersecurity whenever. The only thing you need to have is that focus and the desire to help someone. Because in the end, and especially moving forward, we will likely be as essential to society as firefighters or nurses. So if you're interested, get going and you just find someone that you can get inspiration from, like yourself, Michael, or from our colleague Frederick, or someone else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so how do you know if you should switch careers or not? Like how do you know when you should do it? If you're like, do you have to be super miserable or just a little bit unhappy, or are there any metrics that you, or just what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's so first you have to decide what's your goal in life. If that is to be comfortable, then if you're happy at a job, don't change it. But I think that we as humans are rarely pleased when we are too comfortable. So whenever you feel that you don't get challenged somehow, then you can change. You don't need to be miserable. I would say it's better to change when you're very happy and just feel that, okay, I want something else. I want a new challenge. So when you feel that you don't get the challenges you need, then it's likely a very good time to change. Because if you stop somewhere, if you don't get challenged, you will get comfortable. And then you will start to get bored. And then you will likely be unhappy.
Yeah. That's sort of like the reason that I went to security. And it wasn't a big move, perhaps, because I worked in telecom before as a troubleshooter and like project manager and stuff. But I felt that the things I did had no impact. I made no difference in the world, basically, which sounds very, very like, just broad. But I felt I needed to make an impact and, just help more people, basically. And that is the reason I went into like pure security, which I do now. And I'm so much happier now. This is the best move I've made.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree with that. If you feel that you do something that makes the world just a little bit better, then you have a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah. So there was a talk by Steve Jobs. I think it was at some high school, something like graduation thing. where he spoke, and I'm sort of paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said that like if you wake up and you're not excited to go to work for several days in a row, not just one day, but for a longer period of time, and then you should quit your job and do something else. Maybe switch fields or not, but you shouldn't be, because you spend so much time at work, so you shouldn't be unhappy. I mean, you spend 8 hours a day plus commutes. I mean, you should actually enjoy your daily work, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yep.
But it's hard. Also, because like even if you switch your jobs and because you're passionate about something and you're passionate about, let's say, security. I mean, passion doesn't last forever. You can't rely on passion. So it has to be a deeper meaning to that, in my opinion. Because passion, you will run out of passion eventually. Initially it's a good driver, but yeah. So you need to have a deeper motivation, in my opinion.
Yeah, or get challenged from time to time. Like I used to play a lot of golf previously, and I can still, like when I close my eyes, I can still remember the feeling in my hands when I hit a perfect shot. And that is what drives me in my career as well. Like I can have some bad days. I can have days where I feel I didn't do a good job even. But then you have that single interaction or single like aha moment. And that gives me a lot of energy. But when you start or stop getting those, then it's also, like you said, likely a good point in time, because then it doesn't matter. If you can't get that kick out of working anymore or doing what you're passionate about in general, then you likely need to change to something that can provide you with that injection of happiness or purpose.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're specifically talking about security field here. So, I mean, this can be a very stressful line of work. It's often assumed that we're not supposed to just stop working at 5 o'clock. We're supposed to keep on reading and keep on watching YouTube, like talks or whatever. So, like, how do you manage this sort of distinction between like work and home life, or is it important or not? What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that it's super important. And in all honesty, I've struggled very hard over this last year because like I said initially, I used to travel a lot. I had, I believe, close to 100 flights the year before COVID. And on top of that, I did travel a lot to Stockholm by train, traveled around Sweden and so on. So I often were somewhere else other than an office or at home. But that had also enabled me to feel that when I were traveling, when I were working, I were doing that. And that was usually enough. When I commuted on the train, I could do blogging or whatnot. So now when I'm at home, I'm always at work. So what I try to do is that I only spend time in my office when I do actual work. Then I do a lot of community things, but I try to stay away from the office when I do that. So if I do blog or do social media or whatnot, I usually spend time somewhere else in the house, and I'm only here when I do things like this, when I need the full setup.
Yeah, I'm sort of the opposite, because I use the same setup, not the same computer, but the same setup for gaming and for work and everything, and like Teams and stuff is just so close by when I'm not working that I always sort of reply to work stuff and everything that I maybe shouldn't do because I'm off work, but that doesn't work for me. I am terrible at that distinction between like work and private life, but yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah, and I've drawn that to the extreme because I needed to control myself. So the computer I'm using now have nothing to do with actual work. And I rarely sign in to anything with that. So I have a separate private computer, separate private phone, and I do change them physically when I change context. Because I've tried to cope with having it both ways, but I simply can't. And I've even started to do one weekend every month. I disconnect completely. So I'm not using the phone, not using computers for when I show from 5 p.m. on Friday until 7 a.m. on Monday, where I usually get going. So I do nothing, which is really hard when you have your phone to unlock your car, start the vacuum cleaner,
Yeah.
control the everything.
Everything is in
But
there.
yeah, but it's been very, very good, and I always feel very energized after such a weekend. But everyone is different. Like moving back a couple of years, I had, or I think I was able to do more. But then my daughter came, and other things started to matter more. And at that point, I probably tried to keep going as I used to. But today, it's more about like I need to set some limits for me. And I think that is also a very important thing to have in mind, that you won't degrade by doing that. Like if you do a good job, if you're interested in what you're doing, you can afford to not spend too much time doing research or learning. If it's something that you enjoy, absolutely go ahead. If it gives you energy, do so. But never be afraid of cutting down if you feel that you need to, because you are at a job because you're good at it and because you are a good human, not because you spend hours and hours and hours watching courses or doing labs or doing something like that.
Yeah.
Your personality is likely what matters most in the end anyways.
So we got a question from, well, not a question, but a statement from chat from Ricky B. He says that it happened to me that I got off work and continued doing malware analysis or managing my VPS on my private time. It's a hobby. And I've because I like sports. I like ice hockey and football, and I've read like a bunch of interviews with like NHL players. They say that they don't watch any hockey outside like of their own like work, because they work with hockey because it gets too much for them. So I mean that's a hobby for them, but still they, you know, when they don't have games, they don't watch anything. They just completely shut off. So that's pretty interesting that it is a hobby, but they still sort of they need their own boundaries, even though it pays really well.
Yeah, and I think that's hard, and I likely because that the odd thing about this is that I'm fairly good at separating job from my hobby, which is also very, very similar to my job, because in most of my current customer assignments, I do completely different things than what I do for the community. When it comes to like device management, currently I work mostly with security and compliance, but I still do a lot of device management on my free time. That is what I usually talk about, as well as Microsoft Teams and other aspects. So I think like Ricky said, it's challenging, and to me it's always been very clear mentally when I do something that is my hobby and when I do something that's work. But like take my wife or my daughter or many of my friends who are in the IT business, they can't possibly differentiate from when I'm doing something at work or when I'm having a hobby.
No, I think it's a gray zone. I think sort of things bounce between what's private and what's a hobby or work. Yeah. And Sulika says in chat that unpaid work equals hobby. It's true. So yeah, it's not incorrect, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then Mikael Takeo said, and that was regarding to the fact that we are expected to, you know, just continue learning after work. And he says, well, he challenges me and says, is that true though? Is that something that IT people invented? I think we are the ones that are expecting us to work 24/7. That might be true. I mean, but even if that's us, that's sort of the colleagues and our managers and everything, and it is sort of assumed that we should just keep on just grinding constantly. I think that's the way I feel personally. I'm not sure that anyone agrees, but it's,
I think again that's very hard, because I've been asked to do overtime once in my career, and that was 8 hours on a Sunday 7 years ago or something like that. Other than that, I've never ever been asked to work overtime. But however, we want to stay relevant. And I think that we have a certain responsibility if to at least maintain our level. So if you, like in Sweden, we are very spoiled. We usually get a raise every year, regardless of we deserve it or not.
Yeah.
But that also assumes that we should be maintaining the level of skill we had when we were hired. If we increase, we get a higher raise, but if we rarely get a decrease in salary.
Yeah.
So I think we have that responsibility, and then it's up to us, I would say, and to the employer. Can I do this while I'm at work? And I think that is harder today. But then I also believe that some employers, they take advantage of us having this as a hobby. And I think it's around. I have never felt that I'm someone assumes that I should be doing all of this. I do it because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that in the end is what matters to me. If you feel that someone is pressurizing you to doing something that you don't want to do, or at a certain point when you don't want to do it, then I would definitely start to question it. But again, it's hard. But I do agree with Michael a bit that I think we build it more for ourselves than anyone else. But then it also turns out into this snowball effect. We work with people that are fairly similar to us. So everyone does this. And we usually see that or believe that others are doing this much, much more than we are. And that, again, takes us back to the imposter syndrome. I need to be as good as my colleague. And then you're into a fairly dangerous snowball effect again. And that's why I try to tell people that, yeah, I work too much. I do too much of my community work. I do enjoy it, but I never assume that anyone else should be doing it at the same level. And I also am very honest in, okay, this talk I just did. So let's be take a very good example. I did a talk for Teamsdagen, a Swedish Microsoft Teams event yesterday. And in all honesty, that was a 35-minute talk. And I think I spent 4 hours preparing that.
Yeah.
But to others, that would have taken them 40 hours for them to be pleased. So I'm always as transparent as I can possibly be in telling them I do not work nearly as much as you believe. And when I was out traveling a lot, that was also very important to me to say that, okay, I'm out traveling. You can see that as I'm working 24/7 for a week. But in practice, I spend most of the evenings out on dinners, like with friends. We may be, again, talking about work, but it's not work.
That's true. So, I mean, we've spoken about that. You talk at a lot of different conferences and events. And so we know what you do and sort of where you do it, but why do you involve yourself so much in these events? Is it to build personal brand or to help others, or is there any other reason for it?
I think it's a mix. I again, like the thing everyone assumes that you should answer is that I do it completely for the community. I want to help others. And I would be lying if I said that was the only reason. I do enjoy getting that kick out of standing on a stage and speaking. And I do enjoy traveling. But I also, what gives me most energy is by far getting that feedback from the ones who listen to me or meet me when I'm out traveling or do events like this or engagements like this. To see the engagement in the chat is something that really fills me with energy. And that is by seeing others grow. Like if I can help someone just by, you go and watch my worst competitor's script over here because that will help you. And they say, okay, this saved me hours of work. then I've done a very good job. So even though I, in some cases, benefit for my own sake from doing things like this, by traveling, by experiencing things, it's always around seeing others achieving more, or seeing others achieve their goals, or helping others to achieve their goals by, and that can be on a personal level as well. If I can help someone spend less time at work, they can spend more time doing something other they enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's something that way too many don't really get. That, I mean, I think that in order to be really happy, you need to help others, like unconditionally help others. Not I scratch your back, you scratch my back, but just you help others and you expect nothing in return. That you just help them because you want to. And you don't ever expect them to do anything back for you. Just if they do, that's perfect. But I mean, you shouldn't expect it, because then you're doing it for yourself. You're doing well. You have some other like agenda basically.
And that is also why I enjoy speaking at smaller user groups, or doing things like this, like in the beginning of what I absolutely see as something that will be very successful in the end with your stream. Like, this is where I feel that I can make or do most good. There are others that are super celebrities in our business that primarily speak at large conferences or the paid events or something like that. But I've always have a very close relationship with many of the user groups, which can't afford to get bigger names to go there. And that's where I started. Like, when I started to speak internationally, I found user groups and traveled there. Usually paid it by myself, or my employer at that point paid it. But it was small user groups that helped me build my confidence and build my name. But that's also where they possibly need it the most, because many of them would never have been able to go to Ignite, as an example.
Yeah. So what if what if you're someone who wants to start talking? You've never done it before. Like, this is the first thing that I've ever done. I've never held a webinar, lecture, a talk, or nothing before this. So this is like the first thing I did. I just went live straight away. Yep. But what about, like, if do you have any advice or encouraging words for someone who wants to get into talking? And is there something that you've learned along the way that you can pass on?
Absolutely. And I think we have just 80 in the chat. And I do think I know who it is, because he spoke at one of the user groups I'm organizing earlier this week. He did his absolute first session there.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, and he did a wonderful job, got really good feedback. And so I would say the first thing is to get over that mental blocker most of us have. And that is, why would someone want to listen to me? Yeah. And as long as you have a story to share, if you have done something you are proud of and that helped you, it will likely help a lot of other people as well. And even if someone has spoken about that particular topic 10 or 20 times previously, you likely have another perspective on it. So find a topic that you feel made a difference for you. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be deep. Something that you feel passionate about and where you can tell a very good story. Then find a event that is a good size. Like, I love that English expression where you have a good sized room or a good sized house. It's a bit like the Swedish lagom, which is the perfect size. But you find a event which have a good amount of attendees. Doesn't have to be hundreds, but it should be a bit more than 4 or 5, because you will likely get better feedback then. And then find someone who can just support you in that, like just telling you some good pointers, finding someone who has done this previously. And I would say that most of us that do speak on a regular basis are more than happy to help anyone who wants to get started. So find a good story, find a person that can support you, because they can usually help you find a good event as well, and then find a good event to get started with. And with that, just get going. It's the story that matters. It doesn't matter how long you speak. There are a lot of like lighting talks and such out there today. So do as you did. Just try it. And if you are insecure, walk through that presentation, and you don't have to do a PowerPoint. That is also an essential part.
Yeah.
It's very easy for us to hide behind a PowerPoint, but sometimes it just hinders us from being who we are and telling the story we want to tell. So if you feel more comfortable by not having a PowerPoint, just go ahead, be yourself.
Yeah, it's something that I learned. I mean, I wanted to do this for some time, but like my insecurities was that I speak way too fast and I stutter at times, which really held me back. But now I was like, screw it, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway, because this is me, and if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. But that's me. So Just 80 says yes, it is me. So he's the one at your event. Yep. And I also have to bring up from chat from Black Lion M1, who says two things. He says, Bindertake, you're a great mentor. And then next comment is that Simon likes to take care of others. I'm speaking from experience. He's been providing me with guidance for more than 6 months. He never missed a session, even when he was sick. So it seems you have some good feedback there. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and that Black Lion says I've been supporting her for quite a while, and I have a couple of other persons that I coach as a mentor as well, and that is also something that really challenges me to become a better person as well, and it helps a lot of people. So it's when you give things where you really get that feeling of, okay, I'm doing something good. Like you started to say, we always might want to make a difference, but we don't have to change the world every day. It's about doing those small things that in the end will make a huge difference. By just sending feedback to someone like, I did that today with a project manager I'm working with. She did an absolute great introduction for a meeting. And I just sent that to her. Yeah, you did great. That made her day. Yeah. And that made the world a little bit better by just being kind and encouraging people and giving constructive feedback as well. But never be afraid of trying things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of like complimenting colleagues. Or maybe not scared, but at least do it less than they should. I mean, that's a good advice. If you feel that someone did something good, tell them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it does make their day, as you say. And Black Lion said, well, he pinged me on Twitter saying that I have to ask about your background. Is this the background that we're talking about?
Yeah.
So
this is this.
There's probably a story here.
Yeah, so I will move away a bit. So this image is from an adventure that me and my daughter took a couple of weeks back. And I think that this is also a very a good pointer for which you asked about previously when you are at a good age of changing career. So she had a slight cold, and being in the situation we are, she couldn't attend preschool. So then we went out to the forest, and I had my camera, a way too expensive camera. I can't use it if my life depended on it. And she had, I think, the first digital camera me and my wife purchased 12 years ago. So she has her little camera, and I have my humongous one. And I tried to take this picture. I took 40 pictures of this exact point. And she took one. So my 4-year-old with a 12-year-old camera took the best of all pictures. So that's why I have this one. So, and she did it because she saw the fun of it. She saw that I took pictures, and she wanted to take one too because it looked fun. And in the end, it turned out great. So if you enjoy what you do, you will usually get a much, much better result than if you try to force yourself into being good like I did. Like I purchased an expensive camera. It doesn't help me take better pictures, rather the opposite.
But I think there's a lesson there that, don't overthink things in general, and you don't always need the most expensive things to do your job. Yeah, I shouldn't be the one to tell it because I like to buy stuff. I'm a gadget nerd, so yeah, I should probably quiet on this topic.
I may be guilty as charged.
Next topic, please. Right, let's just skip away from this one. No, but Mikael Takio says in chat, and I have no idea what this is, so I'm gonna see if you know, Simon. So he says that I am actually looking for a good mentor program. I'm trying to get Isaka, Sweden, to start one, but it's slow. Any suggestions? I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is? Isaka, ISACA.
I googled it, or I binged it.
Is that even a verb? You binged it.
Oh, of course it is. I have a very terrible story around that as well. I know it was Mark Minassi, who I think it was my first tech ed in Houston 2014. So I attended his session because everyone said that he was a brilliant speaker, and he truly still is. And he told us a story around this with Google and Bing. So he was standing on another stage, had around 600 people in the audience, and he asked, "Is there anyone who understands the usage of Bing? Is there anyone who Bing in this audience?" Complete silence. Then one person raises his hand, and Mark, of course, like, okay, tell us, because you obviously know something that 500 others in this room doesn't know. And he blushes and says, "It searches porn very well." So apparently that's the only thing Bing is good at.
Yeah.
But so now I binged, and I think it's better if Mikael tells us what it is, because I can't read up on it fast enough. But it's trainings, it looks like.
Ricky B from chat says, "I DuckDuckGo'd it." Yeah,
exactly.
That's a hard term to use on a daily basis.
Yeah, exactly. I ducked it.
I think they actually replied to some Twitter comment asking, what verb should I use, and they replied something like, I can't remember, but yeah, they have a word for it, and it's not DuckDuckGo, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because it's way too long.
It's an independent organization that helps organizational and IT leaders to maximize the value and control risks, focused on information and technology.
Right, so he wants them to start a mentor program.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think that is good, because you can find others similar to you. Yeah, certification body. Thank you. And I think that's good, because it's an easy way to find mentors. But I think it depends on what you want to be supported in. So I'm part of, now I can't remember the name of it. Microsoft created an app called Tribute for Ignite a couple of years ago. And Tribute is an app that connects people that wants to find a mentor with people that can want to invest time in being a mentor. Mm-hmm. So that's how I found Black Lion M1 as an example. We connected there. But I also have a couple of other people that I help in different ways. When I reached out on LinkedIn and Twitter and said, I'm more than happy. If anyone wants my help, I'm more than happy to support you, regardless of where you are in your career, if you just want to get started or whatever you want to do. So I think it's, and some claim that you can't get a mentor that way. But I think we need to question what is a mentor. And in my way, it's someone that can show you the better you. That's what I try to do with all the people I support, because they are all brilliant. Most of them, or all of them, are way better than I am or will ever be. It's around helping them realizing that and trying out things they couldn't dare to do before they found someone that believed in them. So it's about finding someone that is willing to, without getting anything in return, supporting an individual on their journey. And as long as the person who wants to find someone to mentor them have a clear goal on what they want to achieve and how much time and effort they are willing to invest in that personal journey, that is basically the only thing needed. But then it's also a contract. If someone, well, that goes both ways. You trust your mentor, and then that mentor needs to be aware of that and invest the time they've put aside for that individual. So it's a trust that goes both ways. But it's something I really encourage more people to do, both finding mentors, but also becoming a mentor. And I think especially today, like I would be more than happy to be more invested in society as such, like helping individuals, especially young people, I would say, to find a path forward. It doesn't have to be going or leading into an IT career. But I think that's something we need to do, because in my opinion, and we won't go into politics here, but society just doesn't support that today. So we as individuals need to take some responsibility in enabling a better tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. And so Michael Takeo in chat says that like he's not looking for a mentor, but he wants to be a mentor, and he can't find any organization that can facilitate that, and he doesn't like the idea. Just post it on LinkedIn. So then maybe this Microsoft program that you mentioned, and when this gets up on YouTube, I'll add it in the YouTube details, so you can just click the link to it. And is it only Microsoft stuff, or is it just in general?
In general,
okay.
It's built by Microsoft, but there are people in cybersecurity, there are people in management, there are people wanting to change career. So it can really be anything.
That's awesome.
And and I have one person that I support who is very untechnical and have no desire of being technical, but that person really wants to take the next step in their career. So I'm supporting that person by just being an encouraging voice and helping that person with public speaking, which is also being in a meeting. But I think that, like what Michael is saying, is that is the hard part. Like it's because it's hard to reach out to someone and hey, you it looks like you need a mentor. I'm happy to help you. But there are a lot of people that on social media or in forums or whatever are searching for people that can support them. But also you can be a more like informal mentor by just being supportive. I think that is also very, very important, that if someone in your LinkedIn flow or Twitter flow or Facebook flow have done something that you see as a good thing, tell them that. And it doesn't matter if that person is super famous or not, because that is the downside of, like, when you become someone that people look up to on your workplace or in the community or wherever you are, or even as a parent or a friend, people stop at some point to give you compliments. Like you said, why do I need to tell this person that he or she is doing something good? He or she probably knows that, but in reality, you just end up being, I never get encouragement. So encourage each other, because that is the best possible way of again, supporting the community and being a mentor, but on to a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah, no, I really highly encourage people to tell others when they do something good, because you never know, that person might have a really shit day, and then your comment may just save their day, basically, and you don't know that.
Absolutely.
So, and even if you told them last week that they did something good, you can tell them this week again. It's fine, because you'll find them on you sort of find them on a bad day, and your comment will really help out, I think.
Absolutely.
All right, so Simon, this episode is not going to be 2.5 hours long like we have. The past ones has really just been stretched out to way too long. So we're going to keep it a bit short. And I want to get this favorite part of the show called Overrated, Underrated, which I've completely stolen from a guy called Gary Vee. So it's a stolen thing. I think he's fine with it. So the idea is that I'll drop certain topics or words to you, and you tell me if you think they are overrated or underrated. Not in general, not what others think, but like your take on it.
Yeah.
Right. So, bring your own device. Is that overrated or underrated?
Ooh, that is hard.
I know. I was hoping it would be hard.
I think so. I would say that bring your own device as something you talk about is extremely overrated. But the technology that supports it is very underrated. Like, I think bring your own device is something that, or the bring your own device that Microsoft talks about is only existing in the States, basically. I've never found an organization that supports that in the same way in Europe, basically.
Which way is that?
Basically, like you are assumed to bring your own computer and your own phone to work. You as an individual own that. And when you get fired or your assignment is over, you take that away with you. And that is not how big parts of Europe work. If you're an independent consultant, sure, but that's not the same thing. So I think that, again, that goes back to why BYOD as such is overrated, because it's very, very, very limited group of people that actually do that. But the technology with like zero trust, being in control of your data, is extremely underrated, because if you apply that, you could provide your users with a bigger choice of devices, which may even be a real bring your own device.
Awesome, thank you. Next one is higher education, like university or college.
Oh, come on. I haven't gone to any of that.
Yeah? So overrated then?
No,
I know these are hard questions.
You're good at this. Yeah, yeah, it's overrated.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that what I really, the main reason what I would have liked to do that has nothing to do with what I would have learned in actually on lessons or so, but to get that ability to study is something I really miss. Like, my wife is brilliant. She's I don't know how many years she spent in a university, but the ability she has to just read up on a topic is something I envy every single day.
Yeah. Mikael Takeo in chat said, wow, all the students in chat are crying. Sorry, guys, but
sorry.
Work experience and like a driving passion trumps education.
Yeah, and it of course depends on what you want to do. I wouldn't want someone who is passionate about cutting people open to do a surgery on me, like.
Yeah,
but
that's
like,
true.
I do think that I
know
I
saw it on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. But I know that there are recruitment programs where if you don't fill in that you have a certain degree, you're instantly cut out.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, it's overrated, because then you miss a lot of people that likely would have done the job in a different way.
Yeah. And I can say for certain that there are security students that knows way more about certain theoretical subjects than I do, like way more. I'm good at finding the common denominator and finding the outliers and anomalies. I'm terrible at theoretical stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so question from chat. I think I didn't want to bring this up, but I think this is completely your alley. So go nuts if you want. But is BYOD going to be used in a VDI environment? What are the benefits of BYOD? And I know you're heavy into virtual desktop and stuff.
Absolutely. So you have two options for that. VDI is the obvious choice. Like, you can take whichever endpoint you want and run still a full controlled environment on top of that. That is something I do quite a lot, and which I definitely think will be a much, much bigger or more common way of doing it in the future. But the other way, which I also do for a lot of organizations now, especially if you are in the situation where you have a lot of consultants. So one of the customers I'm working with now, they are 2,500 employees and 1,500 consultants. And they usually bring their own devices. So one way of, which is owned by their employer then. But then if you have complete control of your data, so if you have the ability to control and isolate or track the data which is passed on to that device, then you don't need to have a VDI solution. But that requires a lot from the organization. They need to know how to classify data and how to protect data, but you have that option as well. So VDI is definitely one choice. The other choice is to have very, very granular control of your data as such.
Awesome. All right, let's kick back to overrated, underrated. So we've sort of touched upon this, and we'll do it again. So work-life balance, is that overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Like we, and it's not that you should work as much as you desire, but I think you at least should be aware mentally on when you are working and when you're working for fun. Because I think that when you then look back at some point, people can feel, at least temporarily, that, oh, I worked too much. But if you then mentally can look back and say, yeah, but I chose to do this because I enjoyed doing it, I think you will feel better. So I definitely feel that that's underrated.
Perfect. So last question, and we touched about this as well, but passion, overrated or underrated?
Underrated again. I do think that you can, like, it's something that everyone says and very few believe in, but I do think that you can be whatever you want to be as long as you feel passionate about it. And it can take time, and it can be very, very hard, and there may be easier ways of getting where you want to be than having a lot of passion and just trying to force yourself to a certain point where you want to be. But I think that is also what I get most frustrated about when I'm out with my customers, that I meet people that have lost their passion. And it's not that you have to have your work as your prime focus in life, but when you don't feel passionate about achieving what you were hired to do, then something is really off. So I would, any day of the week, rather hire someone that's really passionate about something, but maybe lacking experience or lacking the skills required at this point, than getting someone who have to keep bashing on the students in the chat, have all the education in the world, but lack that passion.
Yeah, and it sort of applies also to someone who has like 20 years experience, but it's just tired of life, and someone who is a lot more junior, but just loves this stuff. I mean, I'd rather have that more junior one, because in 6 months' time they're up to speed, or ish, and that's way better in the long run.
Yeah, and that it's not saying that like junior isn't equivalent of being young.
No.
Junior is not having documented experience on something. And if you have the passion and you feel that you have a passion for cybersecurity when you're 55, great. I think that person would be a perfect role model for so many people.
We have one comment from chat. I can't really pronounce it. He says grumpy old man, and that is so accurate. That's exactly what I am. I'm not even going to deny it. That's me. So, well, grumpy old man probably, because that sort of applies to me.
So, okay, grumpy old or man?
No, like bullseye. 3 out of 3. It's perfect.
Yeah. Great.
So maybe we should sort of wrap up, Simon. I know you have to leave pretty soon. Is there, so just one last question. What sort of is there something that frustrates you apart from lack of passion? Something that sort of frustrates you in work or...
Mhm. And I think that goes back. We haven't really spoken that much about workplace design, and I'm more than happy to elaborate on that at some other point. But I think what frustrates me the most is that there are so many organizations that have the resources, the time, the talent, and the need of improving their digital workplace, or even improving the security around their digital workplace. But they just don't have the vision or the organization, or even worse, the leadership of getting there. Because leadership, in my opinion, is visionary. Like, a leader should be the visionary of an organization.
Mm.
And when that is the only thing that prevents a very, very capable organization of reaching their best possible state, that frustrates me. Because then I can't help them. I can tell them that you have the licenses, you have the technology, you have the reason, you have the skills, you have the time, but you have no clue where you're going.
Yeah. So does a leader have to be a manager or someone in a... Yeah. So it could be anyone.
Absolutely.
It's more it's personality trait rather than role, you'd say.
Yeah. Like, look at like the world in general. Who are the visionaries? It's rarely the one who leads your country. Unfortunately, it's rarely the politicians. It can be a corporate leader or a director, but I think we're most fascinated and inspired by people who just stand up and are passionate again about what they see as the utopia somewhere. And that can be anyone. Someone who believes in both the way to get there and in the goal, and are able to communicate that. That, in my opinion, is a visionary and a leader. And that can be in a group or in an IT department. That can really be anyone.
Yeah. It's awesome. And Mikael the Q in chat says that Simon Sinek, and yeah. If you haven't watched anything with Simon Sinek on YouTube, just do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's awesome. Spot on when we talk about leadership and like inspiring people.
Mm-hmm.
And he also says that what we spoke about earlier about passion stuff, that's exactly what I look for when we hire people. The current knowledge is not that important. It's the capacity to grow and progress. And yeah.
Absolutely
agree. Right. Should we end on that note?
Mm-hmm.
And then
it's been great, and like now I could get going for quite a while, and I think that's what happens when you have a discussion like this, and when you like that is, it must be a privilege from your side, like being able to talk to a lot of people and make them share their passions, because you can't stop at that point.
Yeah, and this is only the 5th episode, so I'm really new at this still. But so far, it's been like, after 30-40 minutes, it really gets going. And then it's hard to stop, basically.
Yeah.
And like, I like to talk about stuff. And all of these areas is not my the domains that I'm very well versed in. So I love talking about this learning stuff. So I like it. And that's hey, it's my show, right? So I can talk about what I like. It's perfect.
Absolutely. And going back again, if you like it, it's a very, very high probability that others will like it as well.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
Right, Simon, thank you so much for joining me. It's been awesome. I will do it again and talk more about the work environment and stuff. That's Absolutely. A whole other show, I think.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you to everyone who has been part of the stream and being very active in the chat. I really, really like that. So thank you so much for spending over an hour with me and Michael.
Yeah, I loved it. Like this chat is amazing because it gets so dynamic. You never know what question's going to come. That's Absolutely. What makes the show. I love this.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good Friday, and we'll see you next week. Right.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Inside security. Inside security.